My name is Melissa Davey, 35 years old. I'm a civil engineer, the kind of person who believes that if you design something carefully enough, reinforce the weak points early, and follow the blueprint, it won't collapse. I used to believe relationships work that way too, that if you invested enough time, enough patience, enough compromise, they would hold. I built my entire life around that belief. For over a decade, I worked my way up at a mid-sized engineering firm, designing commercial buildings and infrastructure projects. Not glamorous, not exciting dinner conversation, but stable, predictable. The kind of life you don't have to question every morning when you wake up. I owned my house outright. My grandfather left me enough to pay off the mortgage early, and I treated that gift like a responsibility. No debt. Solid retirement account. Everything structured, controlled, safe. And then there was Daniel. He came into my life quietly, at a backyard barbecue of all places. No sparks, no dramatic first impression. Just easy conversation, shared jokes, the kind of connection that grows slowly until one day you realize it's become your foundation. 7 years together. Weekend trips to Home Depot, renovating rooms one by one, hosting dinners that felt warm and ordinary in the best way. He talked about kids eventually. I talked about timelines and financial stability. Somewhere in the middle, we convinced ourselves we were on the same page. But looking back now, we weren't. Not really. The cracks were always there. Quiet, subtle, easy to ignore if you didn't look too closely. Money was our biggest fault line. I planned, he spent. I talk about long-term savings, retirement contributions, future security. We compromised, which usually meant I adjusted. I told myself it was normal, that relationships required flexibility, that love meant meeting halfway, even when halfway kept moving further away from where you stood. And then there was my mother, Linda. She adored Daniel. From the very beginning, she treated him like the son she never had. Shopping trips, long phone calls, lunches that lasted hours. At first, it felt like a relief. She stopped hovering over my life, stopped questioning every decision I made. But slowly, something shifted. Whenever Daniel and I disagreed, she sided with him. If I brought up finances, I was too controlling. If I worked late, I was neglecting the relationship. If Daniel felt unhappy, somehow it circled back to me needing to do better. It became this quiet, unspoken pattern. 2 voices against mine. And I let it happen, because it was easier than fighting both of them. Because I believed things would balance out eventually. Because I trusted that the foundation we'd built was strong enough to hold. I was wrong. Everything collapsed on a Tuesday night. I got home around 8 p.m. after staying late to finish calculations for a project deadline. I remember thinking how quiet the house felt. Too quiet. Only the bedroom light was on. I assumed he'd gone to bed early. I walked down the hallway, dropped my bag near the kitchen, and pushed open the bedroom door. And in that moment, everything stopped. Daniel was in our bed, with another woman. For a few seconds, my brain refused to process it. It just cataloged details, like it would at a job site after a structural failure. Her heels by the bed, his watch on the nightstand, the sheets we picked out together twisted around bodies that didn't belong in that space anymore. They both froze. The woman, his ex-girlfriend, Chloe, grabbed the sheet, pulling it up like that could undo what I had just seen. Daniel stared at me, his face draining of color, his mouth opening but no words coming out. "This isn't what it looks like," he finally said. And I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd, so insulting, that my brain didn't know how else to react. "It looks like my boyfriend is in bed with his ex in my house," I said calmly. "So, unless there's some alternative explanation for that?" He started scrambling then. "Apologies. excuses, fragments of sentences that didn't connect into anything real. Chloe avoided my eyes completely. That told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a mistake. This had been happening long enough for guilt to settle in, and still not stop it. "Get out," I said. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself. She just grabbed her clothes and rushed past me, head down, like disappearing faster would somehow erase the moment. The front door slammed seconds later, and suddenly, it was just the two of us. 7 years, reduced to this silence. Let me explain. I didn't move, didn't yell, didn't cry. I just stood there, letting the truth settle into place, piece by piece, like a structure collapsing in slow motion. 7 years, and this was how it ended. I turned around, walked out of the bedroom, grabbed my laptop, my bag, my keys. Every movement felt mechanical, detached, like I had already stepped outside of the life I'd been living. He followed me down the hallway. "Where are you going? We need to talk about this." I ignored him. At the front door, his voice turned desperate. "Please don't leave like this." Like this was a cracked tile, a bad paint job, something cosmetic. I opened the door and walked out. Behind me, I could hear him calling my name, but it sounded distant, faded, like it belonged to someone else's life. I got into my car and started the engine. My hands were steady. That was the part that scared me the most. My entire world had just shattered, and I felt calm, empty, certain. The phone started buzzing before I even reached the end of the street. Message after message, calls, apologies, excuses, and I didn't respond, because for the first time in a long time, I saw everything clearly. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And now, so was mine. I was done. I didn't go home that night. I drove without thinking, hands locked on the wheel, the city lights blurring past like they didn't belong to me anymore. My phone kept vibrating in the cup holder, Daniel's name flashing over and over again, but I let it ring, let it buzz, let it die. There was nothing left to say. I ended up at my friend James's place. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and didn't ask questions right away. "You okay?" he asked finally. I shook my head. "No." He stepped aside. "Come in." That night, I lay awake in his guest room, staring at the ceiling while my phone lit up every few minutes. Messages from Daniel kept coming, longer now, more desperate, more chaotic. "Please come home. I made a mistake. She means nothing. You're the only one I love." I read them all. Didn't answer a single one. Around midnight, the tone shifted. The apologies turned into explanations, then into justifications. So now it was my fault. My long hours, my work, my stability. Somehow those things had pushed him into someone else's bed. That was the moment something inside me changed. The anger didn't explode. It sharpened, focused. I stopped thinking like a partner and started thinking like an engineer again. By 2 a.m., I was sitting at James's kitchen table with a notebook, making a list. Assets, accounts, ownership, timeline. Not emotional, not messy, just facts. The house, mine. Purchased before we lived together, paid off with inheritance. My truck, mine. His car, joint. Savings, shared. I filled pages with details, calculations, contingencies. James walked in at some point, leaned against the counter, watching me work. "You know lawyers exist for this, right?" "I know," I said without looking up. "But I need to understand everything before I walk into that room." He nodded slowly. "Fair." We spent the next hour organizing everything. By the time the sun started rising, I had clarity. Not emotional clarity, something colder. Structural clarity. And that was enough. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia. Sharp, direct, no wasted words. Exactly what I needed. No, I said immediately. I want a clean separation. Fast. Fair. She studied me for a second, then nodded. Good. That makes this easier. We went through everything, line by line. The house? Mine. My accounts? Mostly mine. Shared savings? Split. Car? To be negotiated. No drama, no gray areas, just clean lines. I stayed with James for 3 days. 3 days of silence on my end. Daniel kept calling, texting, spiraling through every possible emotion. Apologies, anger, bargaining, back to apologies again. I didn't respond. On the 4th day, my mother called. "Melissa, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft but urgent. "Daniel told me what happened." Of course he did. "You need to go home and talk to him," she continued. "This isn't something you throw away." I closed my eyes for a second. "It's already thrown away, Mom," I said calmly. "Don't be dramatic. Couples go through things. People make mistakes." There it was. That word. Mistake. Like he'd spilled coffee. Like he'd forgotten an anniversary. "He didn't make a mistake," I said quietly. "He made a choice." "He's devastated," she insisted. "He loves you." "I'm ending it," I said. "I've already contacted a lawyer." Silence. Then disbelief. "You're being stubborn," she snapped. 7 years, Melissa. You don't throw that away over one bad decision. I almost laughed again. 7 years, I repeated. And he chose to cheat anyway. You're overreacting. That was the moment it shifted. Not just anger, betrayal. Because it wasn't just Daniel anymore. It was her. "My decision is final," I said. "I'll be picking up my things from the house this week." "You're making a huge mistake," she said sharply. "Marriage requires forgiveness." "Did he cheat on you?" I asked. Silence. "No," she said finally. "Then it's not the same." "You're being prideful." "I'm being done." I hung up. She called back 4 times. I didn't answer. 2 days later, I went back to the house with James. Daniel wasn't there. I made sure of that. Walking inside felt strange, like stepping into a place that used to belong to me but didn't anymore. I didn't hesitate. I packed my clothes, my tools, my personal files, my grandfather's clock, everything that mattered. 3 hours. That's all it took to dismantle 7 years of shared life. Daniel stood there. His eyes were red, his face hollow. "Melissa, please," he said, stepping forward. "Can we just talk?" "No." "I made a mistake," he said again, his voice cracking. "It didn't mean anything." James shifted slightly in front of me, not aggressive but present. "She's leaving," he said calmly. Daniel looked past him, straight at me. "You're really walking away? Just like that?" I met his eyes. "Not just like that," I said. "You made sure of that." For a second, it looked like he might say something else, something real. But he didn't. And that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because my mother didn't stop. She called every day, left voicemails about forgiveness, family, doing the right thing. When I stopped answering, she showed up at my office, twice. The second time, security had to escort her out. Then she called my brother, Derek. He called me that weekend. "You need to cut Mom some slack," he said. "She's just worried about you." "She's not worried about me," I replied. "She's worried about him." Same thing, he said. No, I said flatly. It's not. There was a pause. People mess up, Derek added. If Michelle cheated on you, I said, would you stay? Silence. That's different, he said. How? She wouldn't do that. I almost smiled. Neither would Daniel, I said, until he did. I ended the call, blocked his number, and in that moment, I didn't just lose a relationship. I lost my family, too. The divorce finalized in 4 months. Clean, efficient, clinical, just the way I wanted it. Daniel got half the savings, his car, and whatever pieces of the life we built that he could carry with him. I kept the house, my accounts, my structure, my foundation, and my sanity. I heard about it through mutual friends. Apparently, they'd been seeing each other for months before I walked in that night. Months of lies layered on top of a life I thought was real. By the time I heard that, I didn't feel anger anymore. Just relief. Like I'd stepped away from something that would have eventually collapsed anyway. I rebuilt my life the only way I knew how, methodically. Work first. I took on more projects, stayed late, poured everything into calculations, deadlines, deliverables. Within months, I got promoted to senior engineer. The raise was significant. Then came everything else. The gym, early mornings, structure, discipline. I lost weight, gained strength, felt present in my own body again. James pulled me into a recreational softball league. At first, I resisted. It felt pointless, but it turned into something simple, easy, no history, no expectations, just showing up, playing, grabbing food afterward. No drama. 6 months after the divorce, I went on my first date. Her name was Ethan Cole. He worked in engineering too, different firm, similar mindset. We met through mutual contacts from the league. Coffee turned into conversation. On the third date, I told him the truth. I got out of a long relationship this year, I said. He cheated. It ended badly. Ethan nodded. I appreciate you telling me. That scare you off? I asked. No, he said simply. Are you still in it emotionally? I thought about it. Some days, I admitted, but not in a way that would pull me back. That's all that matters, he said. We took things slow, no pressure, no expectations, just steady, healthy. For the first time, I understood what that felt like. And then, 8 months after I walked away, everything shifted again. Derek called me, he said. My stomach tightened. Why is he calling you? Because you blocked him. Fair point. What happened? I asked. He hesitated for a second. Your mom's in the hospital. The words hit harder than I expected. What? Heart attack. She's stable, but it was serious. I sat down slowly, my mind trying to process it. She's asking for you, James added. Derek says she wants to fix things before it's too late. Before it's too late. That phrase echoed in my head long after he left. I didn't sleep that night. Memories kept surfacing, uninvited, helping me study before exams, telling me Daniel was perfect for me, telling me I was wrong for leaving him. The next morning, I called Derek's wife, Michelle. How bad is it? I asked. Her voice was quiet. It was a major heart attack. They're talking about bypass surgery. The doctors are concerned. I swallowed. And she asked for me? She hasn't stopped, Michelle said gently. She wants to make things right. Right. Like this was something you could just repair. I hung up and stared at my phone for a long time. Then I called Patricia. My mom's in the hospital, I said. After everything she did. There was a pause. Legally, you don't owe her anything, Patricia said. Emotionally, that's your decision. But ask yourself one question. What? Can you live with not going if something happens? That question stayed with me. By the weekend, I drove to the hospital. I didn't tell anyone, just showed up, gave her name at the front desk, and followed the directions to her room. She looked smaller, fragile, nothing like the woman who had stood in my office lobby arguing with security. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. "You came," she whispered. "Michelle said you wanted to talk." She nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "I've had a lot of time to think." I didn't say anything. "I was wrong," she said, "about everything." I waited. "I thought I was protecting the family," she continued. "I thought if I could just get you to forgive him, everything would go back to normal." "Normal?" I repeated quietly. She closed her eyes. "I didn't think about what you were going through. I only thought about what I was losing." There it was, the truth. "You chose him over me," I said. Her face crumpled. "I know." "I'm sorry, Melissa," she whispered. "I wasn't the mother you needed." The words hung there, real, heavy. But apologies weren't enough, not anymore. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said honestly. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I understand." "But if you want to be part of my life again," I continued, leaning forward slightly, "things have to change." She looked at me carefully. "Tell me." "First," I said, "you acknowledge that I made the right decision. Not just that you're sorry, but that you understand why I left." She didn't hesitate this time. "You were right. You deserved better." "Second," I continued, "you respect my life now. That includes Ethan. No comparisons, no interference." "I promise," she said immediately. "Third, no more using Derek or anyone else to reach me. If you want to talk, you talk to me directly." She nodded again. "And last," I said, my voice steady, "if you ever try to manipulate me again, I'm gone. For good." Her lips trembled. "I understand." I studied her for a moment. For the first time in months, she wasn't pushing, wasn't arguing, wasn't trying to control the outcome. She was just listening. Small talk, surface level, safe. When I stood to leave, she looked at me with something softer. "Will you come back?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "We'll see." I walked out of that hospital feeling different. Not lighter, not healed, but open, cautiously. Over the next few months, she proved it. Short texts, no pressure, no guilt. Boundaries respected. For the first time in my life, she was learning how to let go of control. Eventually, I went to dinner, then another. Then, one night, I brought Ethan. She treated him with kindness, genuine curiosity, no comparisons, no subtle digs. "He's good for you," she said softly. "I can see that." Something in my chest loosened, just a little. Months later, we all sat at the same table, my mom, Derek, Michelle, Ethan, and me. No tension, no past being dragged into the present. Just conversation. Normal. Not perfect, but real. And that's where things are now. Not fully repaired. Maybe they never will be, but rebuilt. Carefully. Intentionally. With stronger boundaries than before. Because this time, I'm not just building a life. I'm protecting it.